Well, shalom and greetings to all of my friends in Colorado, Christian friends of Israeli communities. I'm so disappointed that I couldn't be in Colorado with you today. I've been very busy the past few days promoting my new book. It's called The Brotherhood, America's Next Great Enemy, all about the Muslim Brotherhood. You know, those moderates that our government has been embracing as of late? I'll talk a bit more about that a little later in the speech, but just wanted to kind of lay out where we are right now for you. We are in Washington, D.C., in the CBN News studio. This is the Stakelbeck on Terror bunker, folks. We call it the bunker. Rumors are that Osama bin Laden and Yasser Arafat are buried somewhere beneath the floorboards here, but I think they're only rumors. But this is where we tape the Stakelbeck on Terror show. It airs weekly on CBN News, the Christian Broadcasting Network, and we're blessed to be able to hit these issues on a weekly basis. And we're talking about an issue that's near and dear to my heart. On my show, we're talking frequently about it, the Jewish communities of Judea and Samaria, the biblical heartland, the Bible Belt, the buckle of Israel's Bible Belt. This is an issue and a land and a region that is near and dear to my heart, and I've learned so much about it over the past 2 years. We're going to talk about it today and break down my thoughts on what is coming with Judea and Samaria and why it is so important for us to stand with these communities. You know, the Bible talks about King David, his most trusted men, a few hundred of his most trusted men during a very trying time in the land of Israel's history. They were called the men of Issachar, men who knew the signs and the times and knew what to do about it. Well, I consider you in Colorado tonight, men and women of Issachar. You realize time is short. You realize what we're up against, and you realize that Judea and Samaria are the center of everything that's going on right now and all the vicious hostility towards the land of Israel. Judea and Samaria are on the front lines. They are the nexus, the main target of most of that evil that we're seeing right now, including, by the way, from our own administration here in the U.S. President Obama is revealing his hand. To me, folks, he revealed it during his first term when he asked Israel to move back to what we refer to as the Auschwitz borders, the pre-1967 borders. Now, in a second term, there's no restrainers. No restrainers, nothing to hide. He's in the business of fundamentally transforming America, as he said, and he's also in the business of fundamentally transforming America's relationship with Israel, picking Chuck Hagel, picking Samantha Power, picking John Kerry, and other lower but still pivotal appointments in this administration, stacking the deck with anti-Israel ideologues. In doing this, President Obama is revealing his true face and his true hand. We have the U.S. government turning its back on Israel, but Israel's neighbors in the Middle East, in the immediate vicinity, in North Africa. As you may have heard, there's a so-called Arab Spring unfolding across the Muslim world and situated around Israel's borders in every direction. Even though tiny Israel is surrounded by enemies like it never has been before, even though the world wants Israel to give up more land. Not only land, the biblical heartland of Judea and Samaria, the so-called West Bank. Now, there are obvious, after what I just broke down for you, there are obvious security reasons to hang on to this land. If Israel were to give up Judea and Samaria, everyone watching right now knows what would happen. The same thing that happened in Lebanon, the same thing that happened in Gaza. Hamas, Islamic jihadists funded by Iran, will roll in the rockets, roll in the missiles into eastern Jerusalem. That's what's going to happen. So that's from a security standpoint. What about from a biblical standpoint? The biblical significance of Judea and Samaria. I have to be honest with you. My first few trips to Israel, I didn't get out to Judea and Samaria. Folks, I have to tell you, it opened an entire world to me. My first stop was Shiloh, the beautiful town of Shiloh. Now, the Ark of the Covenant was in this town for close to 400 years. In the pre-Davidic period, before King David set up his kingdom in Jerusalem, the Ark of the Covenant for a long time, close to 400 years, was in Shiloh. I was standing in the place where the Ark of God had stood for centuries. You mean to tell me Israel's going to give this up? This is Israel's biblical heritage. Then to move on from Shiloh and go throughout Samaria, to go to Shechem, known, of course, by the Palestinians as Nablus, and stand on a mountain overlooking where Joseph is buried, Joseph's tomb, to be shown where Joshua is buried, to be shown where Abraham entered the land. This was all in Samaria. All in Samaria. The mountain of curses, the mountain of blessings. I stood in all of these spots that I read in the Bible with my father and dreamed about seeing as a child. And I'm a Gentile. I can only imagine what a Jew feels standing in these places. Israel's going to give these lands up? How? Take the security standpoint out of it. Ladies and gentlemen, this all boils down, this battle that we're waging. It's a spiritual battle. It's a battle between good and evil. The forces of evil, the deck is stacked against Israel right now. And the forces of evil are rampant, and they have a bullseye on Israel's back. They hate Israel because Israel represents God. You cannot take God out of this. This is one issue you cannot take God out of. God's hand is all over this issue. And the Bible is clear that His hand will continue to be all over this issue until the end of days. God's hand is on Judea and Samaria. It is on the land of Israel. Israel cannot give this land up. Just from it is the biblical heart, the beating pulse of the Jewish people in the land of Israel. The entire pre-Davidic period, or 99% of it, unfolded on this land. What is Israel without these lands? What is Israel without the land of its forefathers, where Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob rested their head at night and looked up at the stars? So traveling down from Samaria, down the road of the patriarchs, to Judea, where the city of Hebron is located. Communities like Gush Etzion. You know, Hebron is the city of the patriarchs and the matriarchs. I visited the cave of Machpelah, the cave of the patriarchs and matriarchs, where Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Rebekah, Sarah, Leah are buried in Hebron. How can you give that city up? Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the titans, three of the titans of the Bible, are buried there. It doesn't get any more Israeli or Jewish than that. King David, before he set up his kingdom in Jerusalem, ruled from Hebron for 7 years. How could Israel possibly give this city up? They can't. How could you look in the mirror? How could you look up in the heavens and pray to God and get on your knees with a clear conscience if you were to give that city up? What I'm here to tell you is that from a security standpoint, Judea and Samaria, irreplaceable, can't give it up. Even more importantly, in my mind, from a biblical standpoint, there's no place like Judea and Samaria for the Jewish people. Other than Jerusalem, it's Judea, it's Samaria. King David probably never set foot in Tel Aviv, in modern day Tel Aviv. But I'll tell you where he did set foot, all throughout Judea. Set up his kingdom there for 7 years in Hebron. As a journalist, as a TV host, as a speaker, author, I consider it my sacred duty, really, to stand with the communities of Judea and Samaria who have stolen my heart. I say that in a great way. And I really consider it my duty to get the truth out there. There's so much disinformation and false narratives in the mainstream media about these communities. I consider it my duty and something that God above has tasked me to do, me of all people. But I think I need to be a watchman on the wall for Judea and Samaria. There's not a doubt in my mind, and I'm going to do it. I'm going to speak out boldly. I'm going to speak out truthfully. I'm going to spend hopefully more time in Judea and Samaria. I'm going to leave all the consequences to God. I'm going to let him sort it all out, because I know he's going to sort it out in the right way, and he's going to get the truth out. But for times like these, the truth must be told, because we're getting down to the nitty-gritty. And the pressure on Judea and Samaria, on Israel to give up these lands and establish a Palestinian state, it's going to be fierce, fierce, fierce. It already is. And war is coming. A war is coming to the Middle East, probably ignited by Iran's nuclear weapons program or the Syrian conflict spilling over its borders. War is coming. I believe it's coming soon. And those lands of Judea and Samaria, first of all, will play a pivotal role. And they're the first line of defense for Israel from a security standpoint. Second of all, when the dust settles, the pressure will increase. If only Israel would give up those lands, those pesky settlements, everything would be right. Iran would give up its nuclear weapons program. We'd have peace in our time. Iran's not the problem. It's the settlers. They are the obstacle to world peace. Now, wrap your head around that. There's some 300,000 people living in Judea, Samaria, and the eastern half of Jerusalem. So these 300,000 people are being painted by the world, including the United States, as the world's prime obstacle to peace. That means they have a bullseye on their backs. So the task you've chosen and the mission you've chosen, ladies and gentlemen, it's not an easy one. The road you've chosen is not easy. In standing with Judea and Samaria, hey, it's tough enough to it's tough enough to just say that you stand with Israel today. But to say that you stand with those awful, evil, oppressive settlers in the West Bank, wow, you're really going out on a limb. And I have to tell you, it's completely, totally, and utterly worth it. To me, this is a holy task, and God is going to smile down upon you to stand with his land. God has a deed to that land. That is God's land. He makes that clear throughout both books of the Bible. It's God's land, and he's not eager to give it up to those who don't want to honor it and who don't want to honor his people. So you're on a holy mission. Don't underestimate what you're doing. Sons and daughters of Issachar, men and women of Issachar. 2 Chronicles says the eyes of God scan the whole world, continuously looking for those who will serve him with all of their hearts. And tonight, I'm speaking to men and women who are doing just that. Don't underestimate the importance of what you're doing, and I'm not going to lie to you, it will get hairy for all of us. Tough times are coming. I can't stand here and sugarcoat it for you and say, hey, you've chosen an easy road. It's going to be all earthly blessings. It's going to be prosperity everywhere you look. I can't promise you that. But what I can promise you is Psalm 91. God will give his angels charge over you. Of that, I have no doubt. I can promise you Isaiah 54. I can promise you, merely as someone who believes in them and who knows they're true and who has lived them, Isaiah 54, no weapon formed against you will prosper, and every tongue raised in judgment against you, you shall condemn. So continue to be bold, continue to speak out, continue to encourage people to cross that green line and actually visit Judea and Samaria. Encourage all of your friends, all of your neighbors to go on a fact-finding educational mission. Go to these lands and they will be thrilled and so pleasantly surprised by what they find and so angered by how these communities are miscast in the mainstream media And it's interesting, you know, a lot of Jews and Israelis living in Tel Aviv have probably never been to Judea and Samaria. Pretty sad, right? The stigma that these communities have so unjustly been tarred with. It's a sin what has been done to the good people in Judea and Samaria. So I'm going to make it my mission to get the truth out. I know you are too. And I know at the end of the day, we will be watchmen and women on the wall. And remember what Ezekiel says, or what God says through Ezekiel. If the watchman, I'm paraphrasing, if the watchman does not sound the alarm, God says he will answer to me. I don't know about you. I'm going to sound the alarm. I'm going to keep telling the truth. I'm going to leave all the consequences to Hashem, and I'm going to do it gladly because I know this cause is right. So I thank you again. Thanks again to Kimberly, to Sandra, to everyone at Christian Friends for Israeli Communities. You are truly doing God's work. I am honored to be here with you today. It's been my honor, my pleasure, and I encourage you to pick up my new book, a shameless plug, my new book, The Brotherhood, America's Next Great Enemy. It's only a few days old, so I'm throwing it out there for you. It's fresh off the rack, and I get into all of these issues. And I get into the assault against Israel, against America, against Judeo-Christian biblical values. We think it's a hot one. It's a hot release. And there's a lot of truth-telling in there, and I really try to rip the lid off what we're up against. So stand strong, keep it up, never waver. Thank you again. Shalom, shalom, and God bless you. A recent poll said Israelis are the happiest people in the world. Well, I think the happiest of the happy may be in Judea and Samaria. Number one, because it is a beautiful, beautiful region where the Spirit of God is flowing throughout, permeating. But number two, they truly are pioneers, like we saw here in the Old West. Brave, courageous pioneers who have a purpose. They know that they are living out God's plans for their life and God's plans for their land. They know it.